Happy New Year! While I don't think that it's necessary to wait until a new year rolls around before we start making the changes that we want to see in our lives or before we start reassessing our goals, I do think the new year is a great time to look back on the past year and see what we've done, what we've accomplished, what we're proud of, and all of that. Hi, you guys. This is Nicole from My Carolina Garden. My garden is located in Growing Zone 8B in southeastern North Carolina. Every January, my family and I make gratitude lists. We make a list of all of the things that we accomplished and that we're grateful for that had happened in the previous year and only in the previous year. So while we as gardeners build upon things we've done in the past, I really want to focus on 2024, things that I have accomplished personally in my garden, things that I've created that weren't there before 2024, things that were very successful and noteworthy. So I just want to take a look back on some of my garden journey that you have been with me for and just see the awesomeness. The other thing is, I think it is a really striking comparison when you get to look at something that was just blank and not there before, and then the drama as something huge happens. I'm speaking particularly about my secret garden that did not exist before 2024. I'd say that was probably my greatest accomplishment for this past year. I love the way it turned out, but not only that, things got so huge. Just the plants are so huge, elephant ears and the banana trees, things that it was just amazing. Didn't even exist in that space before last spring. So let's take a look back and see how the 2024 gardening journey went. Back in January, the garden was still asleep. This is when you're assessing your evergreens and the permanent structures in your garden, like the big boulders that I have and I love, garden statuary that maybe stays out throughout the cold season, that type of thing. So looking at that and saying, okay, what else can I do to make this space more interesting? What else can have year-long color so that when I walk around my yard, even if I'm bundled up in a winter jacket, what can I look at and think it still looks beautiful and peaceful and continue to be my garden sanctuary for the year? Then as February comes, you start to look at other things. Now, of course, since I'm in Growing Zone 8B, my bulbs and seeds and things like that may sprout a little bit earlier than some others. Now, I will say that I tried some bulbs this past year that weren't all that successful, but then I had other things that began to emerge largely in March, and these are my tulips and my daffodils, and those things started to add a punch of color that I felt like I really needed. During this time as well, I had things sprouting in the greenhouse. So seeds that I had planted to start some vegetables going and to start growing some flowers I had never grown before. I had a few successes there and also some failures there, and that was just fine. My propagations are one of my favorite things to do, and especially to be able to take care of them throughout the winter months, because I'm not able to have my hands out in the dirt and in the ground in the yard. So instead, I'm looking at cuttings that I've taken from stems or from leaves, what has rooted, what can I transplant into dirt, and have some successes there. Some of my favorite things our begonias. The cane begonias just rooted beautifully in water, and I was able to transplant them into soil and then have more plants. By the time April came around, oh boy, that's when things really start popping. Spring is in the air, things smell different, and that's when the garden is really waking up beautifully all over the place. So I definitely enjoyed my front peninsula garden that time of year. The evening primrose and the twilight primrose, evening is the yellow flowers and the twilight is the light pink, were just looking gorgeous, and those were amazing standouts in the garden. Now, the one thing I've always said about primrose, though, and keep it in mind, is it is a tremendous spreader. So if you don't have a lot of space for the primrose to take up, you might not want to have them in your garden because you will find them everywhere. But I had a beautiful mix of things emerging with things like the golden sword yucca that was a standout for the whole winter, and then these things started to blend together. I had an amazing time utilizing the spring sales that were going on, and I was able to buy things like dianthus. Dianthus, I've done a highlight video just on dianthus alone because I love that plant so much. Stepping back for a moment to April again, that's when I decided to create the secret garden. So we rented a sod cutter and utilized the space behind our pool where we really had nothing happening at the time. We just had some grass growing, and I wanted to utilize that space more. I wanted to grow more, have more luscious tropical plants. And then it began. I started planting some new tropical beauties. I started laying down the blue boardwalk pathway through the secret garden. That was a very easy DIY project of just cutting down pallet wood, staining it the blue color, which was just my choice. It doesn't have to be blue. But I'm really thankful I did that because now the blue is part of the evergreen color in my garden. So I created that secret garden from small divisions of elephant ears and other things that I have acquired along the way. Oh my gosh, the journey of the secret garden was amazing. Then adding in some strings of garden lights and some different things to give it even more flair and pop. Oh my gosh, definitely an amazing space. The whole time in 2024, one of my main goals and visions was to be able to create luscious gardens and expand the size of my gardens, but all staying on a budget. So everything that I did was keeping my budget in mind, dividing up my own perennials, moving them to different areas, garden sharing with my friends so I can use plants from them, and I would just trade them things that I had in plenty. Utilizing the sales that the garden centers have and those clearance racks that you just keep checking out, hoping for treasures, and I've found a lot of them. The garden outside of my fence area in my front side yard is what I like to refer to lovingly as the Garden of Misfit Toys. The island of Misfit Toys from Rudolph, yes, has transformed into that garden. And what I mean by Misfit Toys is those were divisions or things that were given to me that I didn't really have room for. I didn't really know what I was going to do with them. So I placed them out into that garden space, and then it started to take shape. So over the course of 2024, I was able to expand the island of Misfit Toys in a fabulous way. And now it actually looks like it is something. I think 2025 is going to be a time when I'm going to choose to spend a lot of time focusing out there and really beautify that space. Because you know what? That is what is happening on the public side of my fence, if you will, on the outside. That's what my neighbors see when they drive by. I want them to be able to get a little bit of taste of what I have going on in my backyard, but this is in my front. So I think the Island of Misfit Toys is going to get a lot of love and attention from me this year. I was able to have a garden party in the spring, and that was really wonderful to be able to share the plants that I had maybe newly planted or were newly blooming for me. So I had all sorts of goodies. Not to mention the fact that springtime is when bags of mulch go on sale. So I had freshly mulched the yard and everything was just looking amazing. Summer in the garden is an interesting time, a little bit more challenging, I would say, than spring, because now you're dealing with the brutal sun and heat in lower North Carolina. And we have that pretty much all day, every day. And the humidity, oh my goodness, those are our huge challenges here. So I had to keep a close eye on some of my plants. I have cone flowers that I love to grow, different echinacea and black-eyed Susans and different things like that. So I had them in different gardens. So my rock garden was looking gorgeous. I have things in there like my dahlias. Again, even just having the rocks and boulders in there for the extra interest was fabulous. I was able to redo or beautify the pathway to my greenhouse. Now, the greenhouse, of course, doesn't get used in the hot months of the year. No one wants to be in here, and certainly no plants are trying to live in here. But it was a great time for me to make the pathway to the greenhouse something more beautiful. I had so many beauties in my backyard gardens, like tiger lilies and stargazer lilies and things that you only get to enjoy for a couple of weeks out of the year. And my front yard garden. My front yard garden right in front of my front porch that welcomes people up to the front door. What else could I add to make it look beautiful? Adding the dianthus as a border plant along the front. That is something I've said I would do differently because the dianthus doesn't stay in continual bloom, so I didn't have color there like I would have wanted for the entire year. I think in 2025, that is actually another one of my goals. So I said already, working on the island of Misfit toys is going to be one goal, but also adding plants in drifts, full drifts. So when I go to the store and I see something on sale, I'm not just going to buy one or two like I normally would, but instead buy enough to make a full, whether it's going to be the front of the flower bed, something in the middle, whatever it is, but something that's enough to make a statement. So I'd like to do something more colorful this year that makes a statement. Fall is another gorgeous time in my garden because now the oppressive heat begins to slow down and the humidity begins to dry up a smidge and things like that. So by the time October comes around, things are looking fabulous again, and I can start feeling comfortable working out in the garden again without just thinking I'm going to sweat. That's it. And other things like my dipladenia that I have in so many different places. The dipladenia in my waterfall, the dipladenia in my huge pot with creeping Jenny that stayed near my poolside all year through. That plant is an amazing bloomer for me. Have dipladenia in my front yard in a huge flower pot that sits by my front door, and that is coupled with the snake plant. Both of those are really standout plants. The dipladenia because of its vibrant color, but the snake plant because of its shape. I mean, oh my gosh, so interesting. My 2024 gardening season was absolutely amazing, and I loved that we shared the journey together and I made so many new friends. We communicate all the time back and forth about what's happening in your gardens and comparing different things, learning together. Oh my gosh, that has been the ultimate joy, the learning together. I remember distinctly out in the island of Misfit Toys, I had a plant with a red bloom on it. I got it from my sister. No, I didn't know what it was. She didn't know what it was. And then one of you said, Crocosmia, that's probably what it is. And it turned out that was right. These are the ways we learn by communicating and showing what's in our garden and what's thriving and what's making our plants take a toll and all of that kind of stuff. Having that kind of communication continue is really what I'd like to see in the next couple of months while it's still cold out and I'm not going to be planting anything outside. I really want to move on the idea of having greenhouse chats, which is something that I've mentioned to you before. If I do greenhouse chats, please tell me what kind of topics you would like to talk about. What do you want to learn about? Some of the things that I've gotten so far is winter sowing, which I think is fabulous because that's something that could be happening right now. Propagation, things that I'm propagating inside, maybe how-tos, how they're successful, new things we can try, etc. What else would you like to see? Let me know, and greenhouse chats are coming up. Thank you guys again for this amazing 2024 year. I am so looking forward to 2025 and everything that I know this year is going to bring. I feel like the numbers are also really good. 2025, yeah, I really like that. So here's to hoping that everybody gets the garden of their dreams in 2025. We're going to work hard at it. That's what we do. But we love the work, and that's why we do it. So in the end, all of that hard work, even the sweat, is worth it. Thank you again, and until next time, Happy New Year and happy planting.